Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be filming another storytime video, and this is actually something that happened to me like not that long ago. Like it was literally just last December, so it is fresh in my mind. This story is going to be about the time that my boss tried to set me up, which doesn't sound like that awkward, but if you even knew where this story was going to go, you'd be like, oh my fucking god, Jess, you are savage. This is also not just an entertaining story about the shit that happens in my life, but it actually can be kind of words of wisdom from me to you to say that A, you shouldn't change yourself for a guy, and B, well, that's actually the only piece of advice I'm giving in this video. So this whole thing started last December, so December of 2015, and I was at work minding my own damn business, thinking about like what I was going to have for dinner, which is most likely what I was thinking about because that's all I ever think about. I was walking around work, and then all of a sudden my boss comes up to me, and it was like the end of the day, like it was around like 5ish or so. She comes up to me and she's like, Jess, I have set you up with someone. Now, I, at this point in time, was the only person really at my work that was single, which for some reason or other, like when you were the only single person, like pray for you. My boss was like always trying to set me up. Like she would just try her hardest. And this bitch like fucking is single as well, so I don't know what she's talking about, but she is like 52 years old, and she was like, I've tried to set you up with somebody. And as I said, like I was the only single person at this job basically, apart from like some girl who had just started, which no one really like, you know, when like you just start and no one's really like paying you much attention, but when you've been there for as long as I had, like that's when shit really starts to hit the fan. I was like, oh right, who have you tried to set me up with? And there was like a few other girls that I was working with, and they were all sort of like crowding around wanting to know what the story was. And she's like, I just met this guy earlier on today, and he was over at the car park, which there was like a huge car park just over the road from my work, like a 5-minute walk or something. She's like, I was pulling up in my car and I saw this guy standing there, and she's like, he was taking his shirt off and he was like getting changed, and he is so goddamn buff. Like he is just muscles everywhere, Jess, like seriously, he is hot. And I'm like, who are you, mum? Like shut the fuck up, like you're 52. He's like, I went up to him and asked him if he was single, and he said that he was single. And then I said that I had a young girl that worked for me that was also single. I'm like, bitch, if I wanted to go on fucking OkCupid, I'd do it myself. Like, I don't need my 52-year-old boss trying to set me up with some random guy over in a car park. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and how like weird is that? Like just some poor random dude standing there getting changed, and like some 52-year-old woman comes up like, I'm sorry, that is fucked. So I'm like, oh right. And she's like, yeah, you know, he said, I like tried to explain you and like kind of explain what you looked like, and he said that he thought that he might have seen you around. And I'm like, yeah, because a girl with brown hair and a ponytail is like, that's really easy. Like he'd spot me from a mile off, cunt. To be honest with you, like I really don't like saying people's names in videos. I just feel really awkward about it, and I feel uncomfortable, so I'm just not gonna say his name. But anyways, she was like telling me his name, and she was like, oh, you know, talking a bit about him from what she'd learnt about him, as if like she has to know everyone in the damn town. And then one of the girls that I worked with was like, oh, I actually know that guy, like I used to live in the same town as him back before I moved here, etc, etc. She's like, oh, he's really nice, he's really intelligent. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I don't really care. I didn't really want to be set up by other people in that like situation, in that atmosphere. So I was just like, cool, whatever, like I don't care. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just fucking looking to leave this shit because I did not sign up for this. I'm on Tinder. Like you don't need to set me up. I'm on Tinder. Like I got enough for me. He was like, oh, come out to the front. I think that he's like just at the front and you can see what he looks like. And I'm like, this is so bloody awkward. Like I felt weird. Like I was like, oh my god, this guy is gonna see us all staring at the window. Like how embarrassing. Like literally, I'm talking everybody at my work, like 5 girls or so, all go up to the window and we look out, and there was like a bunch of people like packing stuff into the back of a car. So she's like, there he is over there. And I didn't know who the damn she was talking about. All I could see was this guy, and he was wearing like a black cap, black shirt, like black everything. And he looked really skinny. Not skinny shaming. He looked really skinny. And so I was like, well, that can't be the guy that she's talking about, because she's going on about how buff he is. So I don't know who she's talking about. But she was like pointing to him, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at the wrong person. But just looking at him, like, I don't know, he doesn't seem my type of person. He kind of looks like young to me. So I was like, whatever, like, who cares? What was even worse about this situation was basically the fact that this guy actually was working next door to where I was working. So my boss was like, oh yeah, you know, he used to work here and live here, and now he's down here working next door. And I'm like, so I'm gonna have to see this boy every single time I come to work. Like, thanks so much. Like, I'm gonna murder your vagina, because why on earth would I want that? Like, that is so awkward. Like, this guy's gonna think that I have told you to go up and like set me up with him, and I'm gonna have to see him every single day. Like, how bloody awkward. Fast forward a few days later, strong independent woman bitch, where I am on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm gonna try and see if I can find this guy and see what he looks like, because I think it was like a Saturday night and I was like here watching Disney Channel. So I was like, well, fuck it. I go onto my friend's Facebook, because obviously I knew that she knew this guy, and I thought that they might be friends. So I'm looking through her friends on Facebook, and I come across this guy with the same name, and he says that he lives in this area. And so I'm like, he's probably just moved down here, so that makes sense. So I add him on Facebook, and I'm looking through his photos, and I'm like, yeah, he's okay. I'm like, I swear that this guy wasn't the one that I saw the other day, like that they were pointing out to me, but I don't know, I guess I was looking at the wrong person. So I added him as a friend. And then a couple days later, he still hadn't added me. And I was like, well, this is really awkward. Yeah. So I go to work the next day, and I was like talking, and one of the girls in my work was like, oh, like once again, like a bloody 40-year-old woman, like, I don't know what it is about older people trying to like ask you about your love life. I think it's because they don't have sex very often. So this woman's like, oh, you know, have you talked to so-and-so yet? And I'm like, no, bitch, I haven't talked to so-and-so, because why would I? Like, he doesn't even know who I am. So anyway, I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm like, oh, but, and I told my friend who was like, knew him. I was like, I added him on Facebook and he didn't add me back. And she's like, I wonder why that is. Like, that's really weird. I'm like, yeah, so-and-so, like that, you know, his name. And I said his name, first and last name. And she was like, oh, that's not him. That's not the guy that like she was trying to set you up with. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really awkward. Like, I've just added some random guy. And I was like, fine, okay, that's whatever, like, I'm just gonna leave it. I'd already deleted my friend request because I felt really awkward at just sitting there, you know, when you like try to add someone on Facebook and it just sits there. So she's like, no, this is his name and his first name, and she got into her Facebook and showed me. And anyway, so that night I was like looking through his like Facebook photos, and I was like, I really like don't like, this guy is not really my type. Like, I don't really find him that attractive. It was just like, I don't know, he just looked a little, I don't know, I just wasn't really attracted to him. He looked a little bit like a fuckboy, to be honest with you, but not even like in a good way. Like, he didn't look like a fuckboy that was like, you know, knew he was attractive and like that's why he was a fuckboy. He just basically looked like a fuckboy, but he just looked like a pineapple. He didn't even look attractive to me, and I was just like, well, he's not my type, you know what I mean? But everyone had been saying how nice he was and how intelligent he was and how, you know, oh, he would appreciate it if you said hi. And you know when people like put things into your mind and they keep telling you things over and over again, so then you kind of like believe it? Like, that is me, unfortunately. So a couple times, like, I would leave work and I would see this guy, and I kind of like saw him a few times, and I was like, actually, you know, he's not that bad, to be honest with you. But then everybody else was kind of like egging me on and like, oh, he's really nice, Jess, and you know, whatever. And so I was kind of like, you know what, like, it's kind of cute, like, let's be real. Like, imagine if we did like get together and like it was all fate, you know what I mean? Like, he was meant to be working next door and my boss was meant to see him at the car park. A full month went by and I was so nervous every time I came to work, and it was really shit because I'd never like really felt that way before, like nervous to go to work. And so I was so nervous because I would go to work and like he would be like out the front of his work, and then I would leave and he would be out the front, and it was really uncomfortable because I was starting to like him and get a crush on him. And I think for ages, like since I'd been on Tinder so much, I had liked guys and been talking to guys like over the phone sort of thing, but I hadn't had like a full-on like crush of someone in person since I was in like high school, which is sad, but that's basically how it was. I was kind of a bit like, oh, you know, like it was all fresh and new in my mind, so I was like, this is really cute. I was really nervous going to and from work, and I would always try and avoid him, which is really not like, just putting my little like advice hat on right now. If you do like somebody, like it's best not to avoid them. Like actually try and have a conversation with them and look them in the eye. Don't walk past on your phone talking to nobody, which is legit what I do. This is another thing I do to get myself out of awkward situations. I will pretend I'm on the phone to somebody when there is no one there. Or I will call someone just to be on the phone with them so I don't have to deal. Because I was like, I'm going to feel so awkward. And the worst part was that I'm sure a lot of you watching like can relate to this, but I looked so crap in my work uniform. Like my work uniform was actual shit. It looked fucked. Like it looked like I was a florist zookeeper. Like yes, a florist and a zookeeper mixed together. Like it was shit. Every time that I went to work, I never felt confident in my work uniform because it just wasn't me. It wasn't how I wanted to present myself. And when you like a guy or you're like talking to a guy, you don't want to feel unconfident and like you don't want to have low self-esteem. You want to feel like you look good and you're confident and you're happy. Like if I was talking to a guy now, like I'd be fine. But if I was talking to a guy in my work uniform, oh no, like I ain't going to talk to you. I'm going to be on the phone talking to bloody Jesus because he's not there. So anyway, I would walk past and I'd be like so self-conscious like with how I looked, so I would like go on the phone and like pretend that I was talking to someone, or I would like pretend to text and whatever and never really make eye contact if I saw him. So anyway, so I was on Tinder obviously at that time, and I was kind of in that position where he was not on Tinder. Like I was pretty sure, like I hadn't seen him on Tinder, and because he like obviously lived in my area, I thought that I would have. So kind of always sitting there like, why is this guy not on Tinder? Like he seems like really young, and he was a few years older than me. Like he was in his late 20s and I'm 23 now, but I was 22 at the time. So I was like, I wonder why he's not on Tinder. He doesn't have a girlfriend, I know that for certain. So I wonder why he's not on Tinder. And I was like, I don't want to add him on Facebook because that's really awkward if it doesn't go anywhere and we have to see each other at work all the time, or if he doesn't add me. So I was like, I'd rather just add him on Tinder. Like a month and a half later, I was on Tinder, and I had deleted Tinder for a couple weeks because I was like being all independent, like independent woman don't need no man. And then of course it sucked me back in. So I added Tinder again and I like re-downloaded it and I went on, and as I was swiping, and I was like, why is this guy on Tinder? Like it would be so easy because if I swipe him and he doesn't swipe me back, it's not going to be awkward because he doesn't know I've swiped him. But if he does swipe me back and we start talking, then that's sort of like all that needs to happen. So as I was like swiping through, all of a sudden this guy comes up on Tinder, and I was like, oh my god, like thank you Jesus, like my prayers have been answered, like thank the Lord, hallelujah, because I was just so happy. And that on his profile for literally like 10 minutes before swiping him, and I messaged my friend and I was like, I've just found so and so on Tinder, what do I do? Do I swipe him? What if he doesn't swipe me back? What if he does swipe me back? My friend was like, just swipe him and see what happens. So anyways, I do it and we don't match up immediately. I was so nervous that I had to have a glass of wine because I needed to relax myself. So I had wine, and it was fucking disgusting, but I had to have one because I just needed to get into that zone of just relaxation. But because I was so anxious, I actually started feeling sick after like one glass, because I was literally, it made me even more anxious because I was already anxious to begin with. So Alcoholics Anonymous, about like probably 20 minutes or so later, I hadn't swiped that many people because I'd only just been back on Tinder for the first time in a couple of weeks. So it came up that I had a match, and I'm like, oh my god, and I was so scared to check my phone, like I kept procrastinating. And then I finally like went on, and it was this other guy with the same name, but not this guy that I liked. It was another guy with the same name, and I'm like, you little cheek, this is not happening. So anyway, we started talking, and then half an hour later, it said I had another match, and I was like, this has to be this guy, because I only swiped like 2 or so people, like swiped right to 2 or so people. So I went on and I had matched up with him, and I was like literally like, oh my god, like this guy has swiped me. Like Facetune literally gave the goods today, because bitch looking fierce in my photo and this guy is feeling. And I was like, oh my god, like imagine if he has wanted to talk to me, or like the whole time, and now he's finally doing it and he finally can talk to me on Tinder. And I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, I cannot wait. But anyways, what I actually forgot to mention was this guy's Tinder bio. Like, it was pretty damn clear in his Tinder bio that he did not want anything serious. Like, he was just looking for a quick route. I'm gonna have to tell you his Tinder bio so that it actually like makes sense. But his Tinder bio was, this isn't eHarmony. And so I was like, well, this isn't eHarmony basically says, you know, like, I want to put my sausage in your McMuffin real quick. In this situation, I was like, I really just do want to talk to this guy. It's been going on for so long now, and I feel like I need to know, like, if I want to talk to him or not. So I did swipe him right. Normally, if that was any other person that had that as their Tinder bio, I wouldn't swipe them, just because I think there's more discreet ways of going about what you want on Tinder. But I did it anyway because I really wanted to talk to this guy, which is probably not a good thing, but I did it anyway because I wasn't really looking for anything serious either. So I was like, well, we're both on the same page, kind of. So he finally matched up with me, and I was like texting my friend. I'm like, what do I do? Do I say something? Do I not say something? I was like, I kind of want him to message me first just so I don't feel as awkward. And she was like, no, he will message you most likely. If not, you message him. You know, at least he's matched up with you, so he obviously wants to talk to you. About an hour went past and he hadn't said anything, and I was like, oh my god, like, what's happening? So I was like, you know what, I am the type of person where I don't want to have regrets. So I was like, I'm going to message him, because if I don't, you know, it just isn't worth it to me. Like, just waiting for him to message me isn't worth it. Like, I'm just going to, you know, man up and take it one for the team. So I messaged him, and I'm not really the type of person with this guy. I didn't really just want to be like, hey, how's it going? And be really like plain and simple, because maybe I should have done that, but it's just not me. Like, I was like, I want to kind of be funny because I feel like this guy would appreciate a bit of sense of humor, rather than me just being like every other girl and being like, hey, what's doing, you know, whatever. So I messaged him and I was like, what's wrong with eHarmony? I mean, I thought it was funny. I thought that was hilarious. Is it not? Like, I wasn't being serious. Like, what's wrong with eHarmony? Like, what the fuck? I was being funny. Like, I was trying to make a joke, and I thought he would write back and be like, haha, you know, like, just funny. Like, it was being funny. Like, I was being sarcastic. Like, oh, what's wrong with eHarmony? Obviously, like, I knew Tinder was an eHarmony, but it was a joke. I was waiting for him to reply because I literally, like, thought that he was going to reply. While I was waiting, I was like, oh my god, like, does this guy know who I am? Does he know that I work next door? Because let's be honest, like, my Tinder profile pics, yeah, okay. I Facetune, and I whiten the background a little bit on Facetune. Put a little Valencia filter, but it's still me. I don't know if this guy is actually going to know that that's me, because I look really different in my work uniform with just, like, you know, not my weave in. So I was kind of stressed, and I was like, what if he doesn't know it's me? What if he does know it's me? What if he sees me at work on, like, Monday, and, like, he's like, oh, like, you ain't look what I'm looking for, you know what I'm saying? So I was really freaking out, and I was like, you know what, I don't know if I can go to work on Monday if this guy's going to be there. I don't know if I can do it. Like, what if he is disappointed? What if, like, he doesn't know that that's me, and then he sees me and like, he's like, oh my god, that's that girl that I matched up with on Tinder. Like, what if he recognizes me in some way or another? So I was really freaking out. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna have to wear a disguise. Like, I'm gonna have to wear a disguise to work on Monday. This is like the whole thing of me trying to get out of an awkward situation. I was like, I'm gonna have to wear a disguise, because I cannot sit there and turn up to work in my work uniform. If this guy knows who I am and he's like waiting for me, or like waiting to like see me, like even discreetly, he's gonna be fucking disappointed. Which is the first like sign that you shouldn't really be thinking that about yourself. But in this particular case, I did, and I was just so like obsessed with him at this point that I wanted him to think that I was great. So I was like, okay, what can I do to like disguise myself so that he doesn't know who I am? So I basically came up with this. And I was like, well, that's what I'm going to have to wear to work on Monday, because I can't have him seeing me. So I'm going to have to do something like that. All weekend, I was stressed about this particular situation. I was stressed about going to work. I was stressed about him knowing who I was. He hadn't replied yet, and I spent my whole weekend anxious. I like barely ate, and I was like, which is not common for me, and I was so stressed about this guy, and I had not felt this way ever. Like, I had never ever felt this way, but I cared so much about what this guy thought of me. And mind you, I had not spoken to this guy once, okay, like literally once. I had walked past him once and said goodbye after work. That is it. Like, I had not had a conversation with this guy at all. I turn up to work on Monday, and I'm like, if he's there, he needs to see me looking like much better than what I do in my work uniform. Like, first impressions count, and I would not be seeing a guy that I like for the first time in this uniform, so I'm not going to do it today. So I showed up to work in activewear because I was like, at least I look like more flattering in activewear than I do this potato sack. And I got to work, and bitch wasn't even there because it was too early in the morning. Like, he wasn't even there. What's worse is that instead of wearing my ugly work shoes, I had worn Havanas. So I showed up and then realized I hadn't brought my work shoes with me to get changed into. And basically what my plan was that I was going to go to work every single day in my activewear, get changed at work into my work uniform, and then at the end of the day I was going to get back into my activewear and leave. And I was going to tell everybody that I was starting at a gym, and that every single morning and afternoon I was going to the gym. Like, that was literally what I was going to do, like to a T. So I got to work that day, and everyone's like, oh, you're in like workout gear, and I'm like, yeah, like I literally have been to a gym, like I've just started up at like 24/7 fitness, like yes, like bitch, like summer bod. And then they were like asking me like, oh, what did you do today? And I was like, oh, I did a bit of the rowing machine and a bit of the elliptical, like legit being serious, because I was like, I have to do this. Anyway, he wasn't even there. And then by the end of the day, I was like, you know what? This is so sick of me. Like, I should not be sitting there trying to like change myself just for this guy. Even if we did like get together, eventually he's going to see me in my work uniform or like with barely any makeup on or whatever, and he's going to have to accept it. So why even bother now? You know what I mean? So I ended up leaving in my work uniform, and I was like, that is so silly. Like, what an unnecessary thing. Like, I'm not going to go to that length ever again of like trying to like change the way that I look and like dress differently just to please a guy. Fast forward, like, he never messaged me on Tinder. Like, he never replied, and fair enough, he may not have seen the message, but it was just a little awkward. Like, I feel like he just didn't message me back because he didn't want to. So I ended up like unmatching him on Tinder because I just thought it would be so awkward if he had me there on Tinder. Maybe he would like go onto my profile and then he would like talk to me and ask me where I work. Months and months passed by, and I still kept seeing this guy every single morning and every single afternoon at work. Turns out this guy really was a bit of an asshole. I mean, I already thought that he was after that incident, but he turned out to be really a bit of an asshole, especially around girls, and just kind of like a bit of a user. So it's probably a good thing, but that is basically the awkward story of how my boss tried to set me up and how I turned up in activewear to try and impress someone. So that is basically the end of this story. Moral of the story, don't change for a guy. If a guy doesn't like the way that you look, don't even worry. There are tons of guys that will. And also, don't go for pineapple-headed fuckboys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to follow me on all my social media. And I will see you all in my next video. Maybe one day I'll do a boyfriend tag. Maybe it'll be with him. Oh my God, imagine that. Just talking about Bay got me all flustered. I need a drink.